Welcome to Breaking the Standard, where we are closing the communication and knowledge gap for small businesses and GovCon. I'm Aubrey Gainfort, and today we have very special guest Shane Prosser here with us. Shane, welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited.
I'm super excited to have you here, and if you could just please introduce yourself for our guests, that would be great.
Yeah, so my name's Shane Prosser. I am co-founder of GovBrew and also have a government services company called Falcon Tech. I've been doing GovCon for about 10 years now, and prior to that, I'm a U.S. Army veteran.
Well, thank you for your service. And if you're not familiar with GovBrew, you will be by the end of this conversation. But I personally am nerding out a little bit because I've been following these guys for a while. And it's perfect because today we're going to be discussing obtaining relevant, accurate information in GovCon, which is crucial, I think, for anyone that wants to work in or around the GovCon arena. So, can you explain a little bit about the history of GovBrew and what it does?
Yeah, so I have to go way back a little bit to when I started in GovCon to give the full context. So when I got out of the Army, I got a job at a large IT services integrator that was a government contractor. And I worked in corporate development. And honestly, I was way underqualified for the job, and I didn't know anything about government contracting at the time. So I got an amazing job in an industry that was somewhat new to me. So I started off that job, just constantly reading, like, hey, what can I find that's relevant about government contracting? How can I stay up to date? And how can I seem smart in front of my peers and the people that I'm working with every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I continued that throughout my career in government contracting. Shortly after that job, my brother and I started the government services company that we own, Falcon Tech. And still, it was very important for me to find relevant information, make sure I knew what was going on in the industry so we were up to date on opportunities. So when we were talking with our clients and other prime contractors, we had something to talk about. And then as we started to hire on kind of younger individuals who didn't know as much about government contracting, we needed them to continue to read daily, like, hey, this is what's going on in government contracting. So about 3 years ago, we kind of came up with the idea to start to curate news and pull it together and deliver it in a bit of a human fashion where there's a little bit of humor, and you kind of like get a laugh here and there while you're reading about contract wins or protests and whatnot. So we started that with sending it around to just our internal company. Then we shared with some colleagues and friends in the industry, and people really started to like it. And we've just kind of grown it organically there over the past 3 years, to be a force in the GovCon industry that provides free and relevant information on a weekly basis.
And it's so great the way that you do offer this information. And like I said, if you're not familiar with them by the end of this, you will be, but they have really funny memes a lot of times, or, trying to bring humor to sometimes what's seen as very dry information when it comes to government contracting. But you mentioned that it's free. So in addition to that, how is GovBrew different from some other companies that do some of the same types of gathering of information that you guys do?
Yeah, for sure. So one, there's a ton, as you all know, there's a ton of media companies out there that cover government contracting in the federal marketplace, which we love those guys. We don't see them as competitors, because our main difference is we really try to focus on curating news, and trying to pull the most relevant stories, not just try to write featured stories, that our writers would write, but we try to go out, look at hundreds of sources, government sources, media sources, and figure out what's relevant in the defense and aerospace, intelligence community, and civilian industry. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of one difference, is we curate rather than create, which is most of the media companies are creating stories. So we share a lot of those guys' stories. Um, the other thing is we do try to deliver the news in a more human human manner, as I said. We try to be a bit of funny. We call it edutainment, where we educate and entertain. As you said, like when I was in this industry, when I first started, it was a bit stuffy, right? Everything is super professional, which
Hmm.
is just good, but also every once in a while you just kind of want to take a breather, let your hair down a little bit, maybe laugh. So we started to integrate that piece so we could have a little bit of fun while we're understanding what's going on. Another differentiator is our model is not like pay to play. Like one of the things when you're spending hours trying to find information out there, or when I was early on in my career, is like you start to read a lot of stories and you're like, oh, a company paid to have this story written, I can tell, right? So we
Mm.
don't do a lot of the pay to play feature stories. We really just try to focus on pulling what's most relevant for those three segments of the federal contracting industry.
And that's so crucial, I think, because I don't know, it brings a different level of like integrity, in my opinion, because you're not biased in what you're sharing because you're just gathering that information and putting it out there. There's no one that's like paying you to feature this over something else, which it took me a little while to learn that being on this side of the house that, companies actually pay for something to be highlighted or featured. I just assumed that it was just part of the news. So that was me being really naive. But I do appreciate that it's just everything is out there and there's not like a hierarchy or ranking of anything of any kind. Um
And one point on that is I do think that that I have no issues with that. I think there is a space for that. I mean, there's a lot of
mhm,
companies that have very innovative products that a way to get it in front of the market is have a featured, article
absolutely.
about it.
Mhm,
But I just it's hard to tell, what's being just kind of written organically and what's not. So when we started, we're like, all right, we're curating the news, regardless if it was a featured article from somewhere else or a government article, whatever it is. If it's one of the more relevant things, then it's
mhm.
going to be included in the newsletter.
Yeah. And so why do you think it matters for small businesses to have like readily have access to information like what GovBrew provides?
Yeah. So especially as a small business, I mean, as you know, there's various phases of a small business's life cycle. So depending on what small business you are, the information is relevant in different ways, right? Like if you're a two-person company, um, and your main goal is to try to secure subcontracts, it's very relevant to know what companies in the marketplace are winning contracts in your specific capability set. So you can, when you're out trying to get in front of them, you can seem like you know what's going on. You can have relevant information.
Mhm,
Also, it's very important to know where those companies are going to be at, what type of events they're going to be at, so you can go rub shoulders with those guys to ultimately, kind of get to know them.
mhm,
As you, go beyond that and start to subcontract and team on larger opportunities and begin to prime opportunities, it's very important to know what's going on so you can be in front of opportunities, whether you're going to prime it or team it. So you can start talking with potential teaming partners. So you can start getting in front of the government, and if you're doing a growth role in the government contracting industry, there's a endless amount of events and discussions of information that's readily available, but it's important that you have the most up-to-date information. So when you're out there talking to people, it's they get the impression like, okay, this guy understands the industry, he knows what's going on, or this girl really gets our capability set and is educated on that.
mhm, mhm. Um, did you find when you and your brother were, creating and starting up Falcon Tech that a lot of that played into where you guys started to where you are now?
Yes, 100%. So I I am a bit of a over preparer. So like we're going to meetings or events or whatnot. It's like I would just consume as much information as possible. Like if I'm going to meet with X large prime contractor about a few different opportunities, I would spend hours researching what contracts have they had in that space. What are the clients that we're going to talk to them about? What are they doing in the future? What's on their forecast? What are they awarded recently? What is their executives said in the media lately? So that all really helps you paint a picture of like, hey, I know what's going on here. We can be of value. We have this capability. We're also educated. So we use that a lot as a small business, because when it comes down to it, that side of the business is a very heavily relationship based, right? So you have to have trust to create a relationship, and one way to create trust is letting them know um, that you're educated, letting them know that you're prepared. So that's
Mhm.
why I think information plays a vital role in that.
So you kind of answered my next question, but I'm going to ask you anyway, especially when it comes to small businesses. Do you think that having this type of access could be a game changer, especially for small businesses, as you've seen with your company, when it comes to working with the federal government? Like if one company had this type of information and one company didn't, like, do you think that it would make a crucial difference for one versus the other if they were going after something with the government?
Yes, it definitely does make a difference to one, be on the front end of an opportunity, right? There's various stages, and I know you talk about this. I mean, there's various stages of opportunities, right? To be able to
Mhm.
get on the front of that opportunity, maybe even before it goes to market research phase or sources sought, when the government's even just talking about it, um, and have your name in the hat, maybe have a meeting with an executive, or even have a meeting with a prime contractor who does a lot of business there, right? Um, you're going to be in an advantage to be able to win that opportunity or team on that opportunity, um, a much greater advantage than a company who sees an RFP and is like, "Oh, here's an RFP for help desk support. We do help desk support.
Mhm.
Let's call this large company that might go after it, or let's try to prime it and it's due in 15 days." So I think just being prepared, having the information on the prime contracting side and on the subcontracting side is a key component of being successful in this industry.
Yeah, that goes along so much with a lot of what we talk about on the show is that, like do your research, go out and, find out as much as you humanly can about, we usually talk about finding out what you can about the customer and what the agency needs, but it's also so important to know what's going on in the market because maybe that could offer you something in terms of your potential competitors or have you meet, a potential prime company that you didn't know you could have. So, um, with all of your experience and all of your time in GovCon, if you were to give advice to businesses that are currently working in GovCon or specifically small businesses that want to get into GovCon, what would you say to them?
Well, if you're a small business and you want to get into GovCon, I'd say be patient because it does take time. As you said, like you have to do a ton of research. It takes a few um, iterations of going through subbing and trying to prime contract to learn things. And we went through that, and we still go through that now. We'll go after opportunities as a prime, and we don't win, but we get a new piece of key information that we use towards our next opportunity, right? But if you're new and trying to get into the market, really, I think it's about getting very informed, doing a ton of research, um, getting out there, right? I mean, there's a ton of events, whether they're online, whether they're in person. I think getting at those events and starting to talk to people who are doing what you want to do is very important. It's one thing to kind of just sit back and read on the internet. It's another thing to be around a room of individuals that are doing what you want to do. That can
Mm,
really, you can create a key relationship. You can learn a key piece of information. You can potentially even get on a key subcontract just through a face-to-face interaction and starting to meet people. So that's more for the companies that are looking to get into it. I mean, if you are already in GovCon, I think it's similar. advice, be patient, stay informed, read GovBrew, and really, my advice that I say, whether in this industry or not, is don't be afraid to say yes. Like I've only gotten to where we are today by just being like, you know what? Yeah, let's go to that meeting. Let's take that call. Let's try this thing out, and let's see where it takes us. Now,
Mhm.
not all the yeses lead to amazing results, but they do get you one step further down the road to where you ultimately want to be.
I love that. And I could not agree more. And I've sometimes said on the show that no doesn't mean never. So it's really great that you said, that even when you didn't win something, you were able to take away a key piece of information to then apply for the future. And I think that goes hand in hand with patience because it's a marathon. It's not a sprint when it comes to working in the GovCon arena. So I could not highlight and emphasize that more with you. And if our listeners want to get in touch with you, what would be the best way to do that?
So one, you can contact me personally on LinkedIn, or on Twitter. Just look under Shane Prosser. Two, um, if you're in the industry or trying to get in the industry, you should subscribe for GovBrew. It's 100% free. We send it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it keeps you up to date. And then three, we recently, just last year, launched GovBrew Insider, which is market intelligence platform, or really information to get in front of opportunities, get in front of events, understand what's going on. And that's a paid product, but we're going to provide a link to you to give your listeners a 15% discount. So
Oh,
that hopefully you can put that in the show notes
mhm.
page. And so, yeah, those are the three different ways. If you have any questions about anything, I'm more than open to have a call. Just send me a message on LinkedIn or Twitter, and we'll get together.
I've never had a discount offered on anything, so that's super exciting. And I will make sure to link Shane's LinkedIn page and provide the link for the insider registration if you'd like to do that with the discount in the show notes. And if you have any questions for me or for Shane, if there's anything you want to hear about on the show that we haven't talked about already, please email me at breakingthestandard@gmail.com and make sure to go follow us on LinkedIn and listen to us on Apple and Spotify. And until next time, bye.
Bye.